Hey guys, it's your girl Aisha, aka geekxxchic, and I am here with another review to The Walking Dead. This is for episode 5, which was called What Comes After, and you know, it takes a lot for this show to shock me. Like, you know what I mean? After 9 seasons, you know, you can kind of feel like you can see the road that's ahead and predict a lot of stuff that happens, but I'm not gonna lie when I say that the last 10 minutes of this episode, I was not ready for. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming. Wow. Okay, we'll get to the end of the episode. I was gonna start with it, but you know what? Let me go through the other stuff and maybe it'll give me some time to process it in my subconscious and be able to articulate much better than just wow. Let's start with how we started off this episode, which, as everyone on the internet knew, if you were reading up, this was rumored to be the last episode for Andy Lincoln on the show, period. So people were expecting, especially after seeing him get very brutally injured, again, not necessarily fatally, you know, that wasn't a wound to the heart, it wasn't a wound to the head, and he was still able to walk and move around there towards the end, so clearly not a fatal wound, although very serious. And of course, with the big herd coming his way, it seemed like it was a wrap for Rick. And in true Walking Dead fashion, most major characters, when they've been moved or when they've been removed from the show, they usually have a swan song of some type. So either they get a lot of screen time, like for the characters that weren't necessarily part of our main group, they typically would get like a lot of airtime after maybe not necessarily being on screen for weeks at a time. And then suddenly, you know, they would go. Or in other cases, we would have flashbacks. Now the last character where we had a lot of flashbacks to previous situations and people that they met was, I think, Tyrese, sorry. When Tyrese died, his whole episode, we had him, because of course he was dying slowly. We saw him kind of go through all these different interactions that he had and the relationships that he had. And it was kind of cool to see that happen and go through that whole reverse of his time on the show. But of course, because he hadn't been on the show nearly as long as Andy Lincoln has, it wasn't quite as in-depth and as long as this. But it was neat to be able to see some familiar faces from seasons past that we haven't seen in a long time. I mean, my God, I did not expect Shane. I mean, I'm not shocked by any stretch because the actor, I can't think of his name right now, he's always been very familiar with the show since he left. He's always said nothing but good things about it. He's often at a lot of the reunions and anything else that they'll have him in. But seeing Shane again was kind of refreshing. And it's so interesting, you know, I look at how different I feel about Shane. Like when Shane left the show back in season 2, which is hard to believe was 7 years ago, I remember just hating that guy. Like I was so ready for Shane to die. I mean, on the one hand, I kind of liked and appreciated that he was so badass and relentless, and it was true that he made a lot of decisions that Rick wasn't ready to make at that time. But as soon as he like went well, yeah, as soon as he did what he did to Lori and was gonna kill Rick, well, as Rick very aptly put it in the episode, it had to be me. Okay, and I'm like, that is why Richard Grimes, okay, first of his name, king over all of Alexandria, this is why he is the genuine badass that we've known. Because in the back of Rick's mind, as much as he loves to say that I didn't ask for it, I didn't really want it, this is not really my thing, in the back of his mind, deep down inside, there is a tiger, an angry, raging tiger that always says, listen, it has to be me. In the end, it's gotta be me. And so, anyway, I really disliked Shane back then, and I was very happy to see him leave the show. But seeing him make a return in this episode was actually nice, because now that time's passed and we've seen the evolution of Rick, and I've mentioned this in so many previous reviews about how Rick has eventually, I love it that Shane brought out, like, dude, you're me now. Like, you're calling me an asshole, but you're kind of me now. Like, you're doing the kind of stuff that I was doing way back then that you used to call me a psycho for, and now, like, you bit a man's throat out. You know, you killed a bunch of people in the church. Like, you have no qualms anymore. Like, you're a different person, and you are kind of the man that I was. Now, of course, they're not exactly the same. We do know that Rick had limits that Shane likely wouldn't have, but it was just kind of cool to see that now that Rick's kind of evolved to this place where Shane kind of already was, it's much more palatable to see them together. And it was just great to see them buddy around, because as much as Daryl and Rick are supposed to be like the bros of the show, I don't think anyone's really had that level of closeness and understanding Rick the way that Shane did. And that was probably one of the biggest losses he had as far as friends in this show, is that it had to happen, but it really killed Rick to have to lose somebody that he had that deep, resounding connection with. And so it was very apt and wonderful that he was able to come back and have that moment to kind of reminisce on old times, and also give Rick that boot to be like, dude, I need you to dig deep to that place that I know you always seem to find when it comes to push, when it comes to shove, and I need you to fight and get out of here. You are not dying at the hands of these crusty old walkers, all right? They don't even have stomachs no more because they'd be decayed to death. Then we had seeing Scott Wilson and knowing that literally, I think it was, they said like a week after he filmed that scene with Andy, that he passed away in real life, and then having that scene be a scene from his after, like that was harsh. Like, that hit hard. It was like, wow. Imagine, here's Andy Lincoln. Everything in that scene just seems so much more amazing and sentimental and beautiful, because we know that unfortunately, you know, he really did die after that. And oh man, it was just that scene. I'm getting a little choked up just saying it now, because it's so much more beautiful, and the way it was shot. And I don't know if they always meant for it to be, pardon me, I don't know if they always meant for it to be with that beautiful sunlight and the soft lighting and the calm pastures in the background and such a beautiful, serene moment. I don't know if they meant to do that from the get-go, but if they did it in post, I'm still happy. I think it was just a beautiful, beautiful send-off that the show did for him, you know, as a person. I mean, obviously they didn't know at the time of filming, but yeah, that scene really hit hard because of that. And I think it was beautiful that we got to see Andy get to give him that hug and thank him for everything he's done and apologize for the fact that he had to die, and just saying all the things I think the fans would have loved to have been able to say to him if we had known. But anyway, beautiful scene. Love that Rick's kind of letting himself have a lot of much needed absolution. We know that Rick as a character tends to shoulder a lot of responsibility for anyone who dies under his watch, or mistakes that are made that cost people lives, or anything else that's pretty serious. And him having that moment with Herschel, a lot of that was about having that absolution. Again, with Shane, same thing. Shane being like, look, you killed me in that field, it's true, but like, get over it. Like, you had to do what you had to do. It was going to be one of us, and you made it you. So it is what it is. And then Herschel, obviously Rick carried Beth's death on his shoulders quite a bit, and then he knew that him and Maggie weren't getting along, and Maggie felt betrayed. So all of that weighing on Rick constantly. We don't see him, you know, sitting and whining about it all the time, but Rick's the kind of person we know that in his quiet moments, he probably just sits there and churns this stuff in his head and just sits under the weight of that guilt. And having, you know, this visage of Herschel saying like, dude, Maggie's okay. Like, she's still alive. She's tough. She's thriving. You got her to this point. And now she's got Herschel, and they're going to be okay. Like, she's going to fight harder than she ever has because of that little boy. And, you know, she would have never gotten to the point of having him if Rick hadn't been there to support her and be there for the way he has with everyone else. So that was a beautiful scene. Loved every second of it. Like, just killed me emotionally. And then we had Rick go to the Valley of Death. Ugh, that was just, wow. What a more, like, that was like those apocalypse scenes that you see in so many movies where they have the end of the world and there's that one savior who has the dream or the nightmare. You know, Tony Stark sitting there as all the Avengers and all these dead bodies are around him. Again, I think it just lends back to this guilt that Rick always feels about losing the people that he loves. And also, in that particular scene, the fear, right? Rick is constantly scared of losing people. And in Rick's case, in this world where people are literally getting eaten by the dead and safety is such a tenuous and hard thing to come by, Rick is constantly scared of losing people. And of course, with Carl's death still being fairly fresh for him, it's something where I can see that fear is something that probably just keeps him up at night. Like, how do I keep more people from dying? How do I keep more of the people I care about from dying? Not realizing that it really isn't his job to protect everyone like that. Like, Rick can do his best to offer his protection, his shelter, his love, his care, but in the end, grown folks got to take care of grown folks, and he can't control everything. So I like that scene with him and Sasha. Great to see her again as well. Just saying to him, like, you know what, it's not on you. Like, you've done the best you can, and it's not about being scared of people dying, because even though people do die, it's like the fact that you're alive right now, you're affecting people's lives. You're becoming a part of people's lives and memories, and the things that you do today can affect a generation after you. And that's what life is all about. Not focusing on the fact that everyone's going to go at some point, but doing what you can to make your impact now be important, because those are the things that carry forward long after your physical body is gone, right? So great moment there, great message, and hopefully, something for Rick to do, because that's something, again, he's been kind of vice gripping this idea of protecting everybody, and it's not his job first and foremost, and it's also something he needs to understand that he's not capable of doing, and that's okay, and that he should be more focused on making the most of his life now. So that was kind of the last solo dream sequence that Rick had right before he had the one that actually fooled me, where everyone shows up to the rescue and starts fighting off the herd, and him and Michonne have that beautiful, oh, my Michonne heart, where they have this moment and Rick's like, I'm looking for my family and I found my family. Like, again, as a Michonne shipper, it just, we all know that Michonne and Rick have been married since like season 4. But I love every time I hear him refer to her as his family, and just them talking that way, it just warms my heart. But it was great to hear him say that, have that moment, and most importantly, at least emotionally, say what he's always wanted to say to Michonne about, how much he loves her. And again, her coming back and saying, I love you because you're a fighter. You never give up. This is why I fell for you. And it was just a beautiful moment, again, showing just how important that relationship is to Rick and how much it's pulled him through in these last few years. And it was just really great. And of course, the theme of all of these sequences of telling Rick to get up, wake up, keep going. And that's the fighting spirit in Rick. Like, he's never been a quitter. That's just not in Rick's spirit. So yeah, that was basically the majority of the episode. Of course, we have the side of Maggie and Negan, but I'll come back to that because it really was a minor part of the episode. And then finally, Rick coming to his realization that he probably isn't going to live long enough to get back to Alexandria, especially in his condition, and seeing that this bridge that's been such a huge focal point for him this season is the perfect solution to get this herd away from the camps, or not the camps, but the settlements with all the people. So he has his one big move, his heroic bang, his sayonara with swag, and he sees the dynamite and decides, you know what, I gotta blow this bridge, because he thought the weight would be enough, but when he realized that wasn't the case, because they're just such damn good builders, he decides to make the sacrifice to save his family, which is what he's always aimed to do since season 1. So all of that beautiful. And if that had been the end, honestly, I would have considered it to be pretty sweet. It was a badass way for Rick to go out. My biggest complaint, as I said, would have been that I really wanted him to have his goodbye moment with Michonne, especially because, come on, show, we all know that that's the love of his life. But if it had to go out that way, I was not going to be mad at that. Like, if Rick Grimes is going to go out, let him go out doing a badass thing for the people he cares about, because that is so true to his character. Interesting side note, though, about all the people who visited him in his Ghosts of Life past. No Lori. No Lori. I actually expected to see Glenn. I'm not surprised about the Lori thing, though, because we had all of that in season 3, him going through the madness and dealing with all of that at that point. But honestly, I don't think he even reached to a point where what Lori would have thought about him or anything she would have needed to forgive him for, or vice versa. I think he worked through all of that when she died. So anyways, the actress probably was also not available, but interesting that she was an omission. And also Glenn, glaring omission, but I believe he was working on a film. I can't remember the name. He just came out just earlier this year, a film came out with him, and I think that he probably was busy. But it would have been great to see Glenn. I think that's somebody that Rick would have really liked to see in his montage. That was the first half of the episode. Beautifully done. Like, I don't know, like what way do you wrap up the star of a show who's leaving after 9 years? Like, I don't even know how you take on a feat like that, even if you have all this time to kind of prepare for it. So as I mentioned before, another chunk of the episode was dedicated to Maggie wanting to go and kill Negan, something she's been apparently obsessing and dreaming about since the incident under the tree. It's understandable, I think, out of everyone who's still standing. Obviously Rick has reasons to kill Negan, but for Maggie is so much more personal because Negan killed Glenn himself and right in front of her and laughed and mocked about it for so long. So I can see, like she said to Michonne, like, this is what I've been fixating on. You know, that's what got me through after Glenn died and has helped me, you know, just survive this long, was this hope and this dream and this promise that I was going to be able to make the person who did this pay. And then it was taken from me. And then obviously that obsession only grew. We get where Maggie was coming from. I don't think anyone argues that Maggie is not justified in wanting Negan dead and wanting to be the one who does it. And I think I said this last season that I don't think it was fair for Rick to unilaterally decide that Negan didn't die. But that whole moment between her and Michonne, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping a brawl would break out. There's a little part of me is kind of like, well, Maggie's a badass and Michonne's a badass. But anyways, I'm glad that didn't happen because waste of energy for two very smart and beautiful women. So I think Michonne figured out in that moment that Maggie would have to go in there and deal with it herself. Maggie, she had her moment and she realized that Negan is not who he was. Like in her mind, obviously when you fantasize about something like a moment like that for so long, you build up in your head what you think it's gonna be like. Negan's not the same man he was a year ago. He's frail, he's emotionally battered, like he's kind of given up on life a little bit because he just realized he doesn't have his power anymore, which is what he thrived on after his wife died. So when she saw this broken shell of what he was, she was just like, it's not even gonna give me satisfaction now because it's like me, we saw it would have been a mercy killing. And the last thing that Maggie wanted to give Negan at that point was mercy. So Negan lives and Maggie has finally gotten that closure that she's been waiting so long for. But now for the last few minutes of the show that just blew my mind and rocked my world. And I think there was a collective, what? Likely across the fandom when that happened. So Rick's not dead. I don't know how to process this. So Jadis, who we saw was trying to get away from the chaos that is all these kingdoms trying to come together under Rick, she calls the people, the scavengers, and she tells them she's got an A and a B. I'm still not sure what A and B means, but she was gonna sacrifice Gabriel. We saw she chickened out, didn't do that. But then we see Rick ends up on the shore, still alive. Looked like he was missing a foot, maybe? I have to look back. He definitely had blood on the lower part of his body, but injured but still alive, because that's Rick. That is Rick. It had to be him. He was gonna outlive them walkers, man. She sees him and she radios and says, you know what, I have a bee. Come get us. Do we have a deal? I want to save his life because I'm saving a friend, which is very interesting. I don't know if we've ever heard Jadis refer to Rick as that before. They do have a deal, apparently. He's on this chopper. We see that he's got blankets. He's cleaned up. It looks like he had an IV hooked up. So these people have got supplies. Like, they've got things. And my guess is, based on what we saw last season of Jadis's sexy living quarters in the dump, I think the scavengers likely have everything they need to patch Rick up. So this opens a whole new can of worms because we thought Rick was gonna die. Like, I was prepared. I was emotionally prepared. I have my drink, which I drank, and I was ready to say my goodbyes. And now y'all are telling me that he's still alive and that he might be, what, laying low in a completely different community, letting Michonne and Judith think that he's dead? Now, there is, of course, the chance that wherever he goes, the scavengers will not let him, like, they may, for their own protection, obviously the fact that they've remained hidden this long and all that's going on means that they've had to keep things pretty hush-hush. It's possible that they just keep Rick from being able to talk to anyone or communicate back with the people in Alexandria, but I think it's very interesting that the show is giving Andy this back door to come back into the show at some point. I don't know, I'm 50-50. Part of me is a little disappointed that they didn't go through with killing Rick just because, again, everyone had built up to that, but I love Andy Lincoln and I love his character of Rick on the show, and it's a great way. The show's not stupid. This is a fantastic way to keep people, you know, just dangling that carrot of the idea that Rick could come back at any time, potentially. So Rick is no, or sorry, I should say Andy Lincoln is no longer a series regular, like the lead of the show anymore, but that doesn't mean he can't come back now, right? He could come back as a guest star. That was a mind blower. I did not expect the show to do that, but as I said, I don't totally hate it, I don't think yet. But we'll see. We'll see how they play out the rest of the season. It does look like in the flash, sorry, let me finish up. Then we of course had what was a flash forward, which I didn't realize it was a flash forward, with Judith, the sharpshooter Grimes. I mean, she's putting Carl to shame right now. That girl took out what, like 8 walkers with a pistol and long range? And then she was all like, y'all come on, it's safe, I got you. Don't worry about it. She had the gun and, look, y'all, I almost cried when I saw her with the gun and the sword. Like, what a symbol of all the things that were shown ever was to us. Like, the feels, I honestly can't. But yeah, she just kind of came to the rescue and, like a badass, saved those people. And we're apparently going into the future. How far in the future, I don't know yet. So it looks like with the death of Rick Grimes, the show is looking to kind of reset things a little bit and shake things up as far as obviously the people we're going to see, and also I guess the direction of where things are going to be going. I am interested now to see where we are in this time period now, how much has happened, how the community's changed and grown. We saw a really interesting trailer at the end of this episode showing Carol looking all like, looking all warrior woman with her long hair. Her hair has never been anything but buzzed, so very interesting that she let it grow out, and I'm wondering if that means anything. Michonne getting a hair upgrade. She's styling the hair now, but we heard her say, I'm never giving up. So obviously they probably went to go look for Rick's body, because I can see, like, I could not see Rick be, or sorry, Michonne, wow. I could not see Michonne being okay with Rick wandering around as a walker. It'll be an interesting season going forward, I guess. I don't know. We'll see how the next episode goes. I think it's going to be a very different feel without Andy being there and knowing he's not going to come back, but I am going to check it out. I am very intrigued by this flash forward and what it can mean for the show and what they plan to do now with this time jump that they've implemented. Overall, guys, it was a good episode. I was not, like I said, that twist at the end was completely unexpected, but still nice, as I mentioned. I'm not sure how I totally feel about it yet, but maybe after it sinks in, I'll have more thoughts about it next week. What did you guys think of this episode? Do you feel like it was a good send-off to Andy Lincoln as the lead of the show? Are you pissed that they chickened out on the whole killing Rick off thing, or are you excited for what it might mean? Also, do you think we're going to see Rick again in this season, or do you think they're just going to hold off and leave Rick in the land of the scavengers forever and ever? Please leave your comments below. You know I love reading those comments and getting involved in that conversation with you. And if you like this video, guys, please click like, and if you want to see more from this geeky face, please click subscribe. Until next time, see ya!